President Nixon started the war on drugs in 1971. There's been many different ways the nation has attempted to halt the deadly drug trade and protect our nation's citizens from the harmful effects of these drugs. Though these ways have been effective to an extent, there are still large quantities of drugs being circulated through our country today. This is why National Geographic gave me the opportunity to interview three of the top authorities in halting the drug trade's expansion. The first stop was right here in the United States of America, through our Coast Guard and Special Drug Task Force, who developed many high-tech gadgets and equipment meant to keep up with the ever-increasing amount of technology used by the cartels. These are the groups that are pushing the cocaine and other drugs. I met with the captain of the high-tech boat, also known as the M80 Stiletto. Though he was able to talk about the basic details and uses for the Stiletto, many of the technologies are top secret and I was not able to film them. Good evening, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
I'm well. So, tell me about the M80 Stiletto.
Well, the current M80 Stiletto was launched in early 2006 and is still undergoing trials. The vessel is just shy of 90 feet, is 15 feet high, and is able to reach speeds close to 60 miles per hour. It is able to carry 12 Navy SEALs. The vessel is built out of a carbon fiber composite and classified epoxy, which causes the vessel to be very light yet durable. The design is extremely innovative compared to other boats on the water today. Most modern boats are narrow and deep, while the Stiletto is very wide, 40 meters, and is able to sit higher on the water, making it a very smooth ride even in very rough waters. This allows the Stiletto to maintain high speeds even in choppy waters.
A machine of this caliber must cost a great deal of taxpayers' money.
Actually, considering the overwhelming amount of new technology and design in this vessel, it is relatively inexpensive compared to other military vehicles. A Stiletto costs between $6 to $10 million. To put this into perspective, a fighter jet can range from $14 to $19 million each. This means that the cost to produce a Stiletto is actually less than that of an F-16 or F-18.
Are there any other features you're able to share with us today?
One of the pieces of the Stiletto that is influential in seizing the cartel's ships and submersibles is the topside deck, which can launch a rigid hull inflatable boat, or RIB, which the SEALs are able to launch and overtake cartel's vessels. Also, there's an autonomous underwater vehicle, or AUV, which is used for a similar purpose. Though I cannot get into details about either because of the top secret nature of the vessels due to their state as a trial at this point in time.
Produce cocaine. He will touch more in depth on how the process works and why it should be considered a very viable option. Good evening, Dr. Jones.
Good afternoon to you too, sir.
Please tell me about your proposed idea to alter the DNA of the cocaine plants.
I am the author of a scientific journal in which I propose ideas of how to deal with problems as well as other possible scientific discoveries. Most of these ideas are relatively outlandish, but some have been quite possible. It is my aim to come up with new ideas in science. One day, I was thinking about what to publish for that particular journal, and the idea of altering cocaine, much like the way that scientists have altered the DNA in corn and other cash crops to produce max yields by changing small pieces of DNA that affect what the scientists want to mutate. I thought that if it was possible to do this in other plants, why not try doing it with cocaine? The scientists were able to change the DNA of the coca plant so that the enzyme that is produced that triggers the essential parts of the coca plant that produce cocaine to stop functioning, the plant would stop producing those parts.
How would this be possible? Also, what about the cocaine plants that are already planted?
The original idea was to inject the seed of the coca plant so that when the plant matures, it never produces the essential parts. However, this process proved to be a problem because cartels are not going to buy seeds that are altered and likely have their own supply. Also, coca plants are perennials and do not need to be planted each year. It, however, is hypothetically possible to make a pesticide that will cause the coca plants to age quickly and die before it is able to produce. If a pesticide were made, it would be engineered to only affect coca plants so it will not have any ill effects on the other plants or animals. The pesticide would be able to be sprayed over the plants from planes and work much like the pesticides used by farmers.
How would this actually work? Would it change the DNA structure?
This method could possibly change the DNA, but more likely act as a sort of virus that enters the plants and causes it to die by mutating it in a way that causes the plant to stop producing the essential enzymes that cause it to grow at a normal rate and produce what the cartels use to make the cocaine.
What is the current state of this procedure at the moment?
At the moment, a large company named Biosource is attempting to locate the parts of the coca plant that need to be mutated. After this is achieved, it will then go into the stage of development that a pesticide will start to be produced and tested.
Lastly, I met with a representative from Portugal, a nation leading in a new way of dealing with the ever-present problem of drugs around the world. Portugal made all possession of drug charges non-criminal offenses and offered rehab instead of jail time for those who are suffering from addiction. She will touch on how this has affected her country and the positive and negatives that many people find of this controversial form of drug control. So tell me, what exactly has Portugal done differently than other countries in terms of drug control?
Much like what Holland did concerning cannabis, causing no criminal charge against a person being found in possession of marijuana, we have abolished criminal penalties for people found in possession of all drugs. This includes marijuana, cocaine, and heroin, as well as others. Instead of sentencing those found in possession to jail time, Portugal has replaced the jail time with drug rehab options. This is actually less expensive than if Portugal were to incarcerate individuals. People found in possession of drugs meet with a psychologist as well as other professionals on a panel that decide what course of action would be best for each individual and can be denied without any legal repercussions.
This seems like a very controversial way of going about drug control. I would assume you've met resistance to this idea?
Yes, we have met some opposition to decriminalizing drugs. Many of those against the new laws think it will open our country to drug tourism, much like Amsterdam with cannabis. People are afraid it may lead to a great increase in use of drugs in Portugal and cause more crime and harm.
Has this happened since the new laws and programs were instilled in 2001?
Actually, studies have shown that between 2001 and 2006, drug use of all kinds fell from before when the new policies were activated. The amount of high schoolers using drugs went from 14% to 10%. Also, the number of people who have drug problems and sought out help rose from 6,040 to 14,877 after the increased funding for rehab. Before decriminalization, the amount of drug usage rates were double, but now the usage rates are the lowest in the European Union. While in places such as the United States, over half of the inmates incarcerated are due to drug convictions. This high number costs the government more money keeping these people in prison compared to providing rehab instead.
So does decriminalization mean that all drugs are legal and able to be used whenever and wherever an individual wants?
This is not the case. Decriminalization means that the person will not be in prison because of drug possession. Drugs are still illegal to possess. Possession, however, doesn't mean the person in possession of the drugs will be charged with a criminal offense. However, distribution and trafficking are still criminal offenses taken very seriously and will be punished by imprisonment or other means deemed appropriate by law and differ from situation to situation. Many see decriminalization as an opportunity for a fresh start. It gives people who made a mistake a chance to correct their life.
These three different ways of helping stop the drug trade in America could be used together in helping prevent harm in the future. The stiletto provides a type of prevention that hinders the smuggler's ability to get the product in the United States. He can seize the product before it even touches land. The United States may also be able to look at Portugal as an example of how to form new laws that will help out not only lower drug use, but also help those who have a problem with drugs get help and get their lives back on track. And lastly, the genetic mutations would be able to make it possible to take cocaine out of the country and out of the world. This could help the current users quit because there wouldn't be any product for them to have, as well as stop future users as well. Together, these three plans could work together to accomplish even more than they could by themselves. Together, they could make the United States a healthier, less drug-dependent nation.